Today on the show is Nathan Morgan French. Nathan started super young as an entrepreneur and had a couple of really interesting and quite challenging missteps along the way.
6 months, had a successful business that any experienced business person would have just scaled massively. Whereas what I did is started coming up with other shit to sell.
During his time, he also struggled with addiction.
So I was like a degenerate gambler. 16 to maybe like 22 or 23, I can't remember the exact date, but quite a while. I came home with like $10,000 of $100 bills, which is like quite thick, like bulging wallet. I gambled away like all the money in my savings account.
Nathan shares a really deeply personal story.
And I'm in the room, in the bedroom, and I've gambled away, I'm going to say like probably 15 grand with like the savings plus the credit card to nothing. So like I now have nothing.
And how he handled that addiction.
But I do remember being like, thank God, like this is rock bottom. Like I have to tell people.
Nathan's an open, lovable, enigmatic character. I hope you enjoy the show. Nathan Morgan French, welcome to the show.
Thanks, mate. Thank you very much.
What a pleasure. Hey, so you read at a young age, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you did that because of a bad sunburn. That went on to have a really big impact upon your life and on your career. So have you thought about sending the Sun a thank you card for basically launching your entire career?
No, not at all. Like I still, as you can probably tell by the redness of my face, I'm sensitive to the sun.
I can relate.
So no, I haven't.
Maybe something to ponder into the future. If we work out a way to communicate with Sol, as we also know it to be. So
yeah.
Well,
it's like a gratitude play. Maybe I can improve my relationship with the sun.
I love that.
So yeah,
I love that.
I'll work on that.
This is a really relevant point to pause on for a second. Gratitude is one of those tricks to having a rich and a whole life, having gratitude for things. And I used to use a thing called the 5-minute journal, and it had 3 things to be grateful for today.
Know the journal?
You know the journal. Okay, it's a great product to get yourself started in journaling because it establishes the habit with some really simple prompts.
Yeah.
And so early on, I found myself being quite self-centered about those things. Like I'm grateful for having a good mind, and I'm grateful for discipline, and I'm grateful for having a full head of hair. I didn't, but those sort of things. And then over time, you realize that you're being incredibly self-centered. And then what I ended up doing is going, I'm grateful for oxygen. I'm grateful for the bees. I'm grateful for the sun. All of these things that make life possible and able. And it becomes like grounding and humbling. Do you have a gratitude practice?
So I started the 5-minute journal ages ago. Never got into the habit. I have on and off for the last 10, maybe more years, done a meditation called the 6-phase meditation.
Tell me about that.
It's real good. I actually did it it's a guided meditation.
Yep.
I obviously had dramas getting here this morning, so I was a little bit stressed. And so I'm in the Uber and...
By the way, Nathan was going to fly here from Tauranga this morning. We booked this conversation in 48 hours ago and then had problems getting onto the aircraft and had to Uber himself to Auckland. So thank you for doing that.
That's fine. I was just laughing because anyone who knows me will be like, that's not surprising. That if Sam wasn't with him, he missed the flight.
Sam's your wife?
Sam's my wife, yeah.
So tell us about the meditation.
Oh, the meditation. Yeah. So 6-phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani. It's basically a guided meditation that takes you through 6 phases. I can't remember them all. The first one is around like feeling love and then having that expand out into the world. And you do that by picturing someone you love and then feeling that. I'm not going to go through the whole meditation, but it's super effective. I've always said that the times where I've been like at my best is when I've been doing that consistently. Unfortunately, I still struggle to do it daily. But yeah.
I've had a 15-year meditation practice, and we moved home 4 times last year in a short period of time whilst we sold our place, and then the new place fell through. So we had these short-term places, and I dropped my meditation practice at that point, moved into the new home. Life was good. And so it ebbed out of my life. And I realized this when we were just traveling recently, that I'm like, I used to have this thing that was really important to my life. I've brought it back, and the consequences just actually quite profound. I reminded myself what I was doing in the first place. Sleep quality has markedly improved. Energy levels have improved, and my ability to deal with like little niggles that might have become, big niggles has changed. So I can completely relate. Vishen Lakhiani
Vishen, Vishen,
Yes.
Lakyani.
Yeah. For those unfamiliar with meditation, it can seem a little foreign and a little like, I don't know where to start. I started with guided meditations. A lot of us do. Headspace was an app that I still use Waking Up by Sam Harris occasionally. Vishen, they'd probably find it on YouTube. Just give it a go. It's not weird. It's not freaky. It's one of the things that many, many successful and super grounded people. I was listening to Ray Dalio this morning, and he is the founder of the largest hedge fund in the world. Thank you. And a $150 billion hedge fund, and he credits part of his success with meditation. So this is like a well-trodden path, mainstream. This is not a meditation podcast. This is a podcast business.
I could yarn about meditation though.
Yeah, okay as well. But we'll lose the audience.
So last thing on that, he does a course, I think it's free in his app, called No Bullshit Guide to Meditation or something.
Nice.
Kind of an intro for people who don't want the woo-woo stuff.
Yeah, love it. So today you're wearing a hoodie, The Good Broker. We'll talk about that in a minute. But before that, you had a business in Australia, which was called originally Flash Solutions. You then teamed up with a business partner who had a company called Connected AU. That's the company that you ultimately sold. But let's go back to the start of that, because it started life as a telco resale company, kind of morphed into being an ISP. But let's talk about the origin story of that first business for you.
I was working in a business who sold phone and internet services.
Okay.
And I'd actually partnered with them to sell security systems to their customer base. And then I ended up getting drawn into their business. I didn't have any ownership, but I was just helping them with some stuff.
This is here in NZ?
This is in Australia. So both these businesses, this is all in Australia. So I moved to Aussie when I was 20, and I moved back here maybe a couple of years ago. So 30 something. So what was I saying? Flash Solutions. Yeah. So I was doing this thing, helping these guys with their business. And when I was helping them, I was like, I saw the business model, and telco was recurring revenue business model, way better than my once off selling a CCTV system business model. And I sort of said to them, guys, like, I want to be a part of this business. Like, I'm helping you guys all the time. If we can cut me in, I'll stick around. Otherwise, I just want to go build the things I'm trying to tell you to build. And then that's kind of how I started Flash Solutions.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so what was Flash? You were selling like phone services, systems and hardware. What was the nature of the business?
Phone systems and internet services to business customers. So basically, it was really simple. Internet was getting better at the time. And so you could buy a business grade internet connection. And so you get better internet. You could connect it up to VoIP, which would drastically reduce your phone call cost. So it was a very easy sale. Like, hey, do you want better internet for the same price?
Yes.
We just do some technology stuff that makes that work.
Yeah, got it. Okay. That was back in the early days when we weren't necessarily pumping voice calls across the IP internet protocol network.
Yeah, that was
so early
a while ago.
2010s, like 2012, 13 kind of thing.
Yeah, so I think I should know this, but I reckon it was about 2016 that I started that business, or 2015. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so what was you were B2B, you were selling to business customers.
Yeah.
What was the early kind of sales motions that you got into to enable yourself to win in a market that was, it wasn't right super early days, but it was still presenting an alternative solution?
Yeah. It was pretty early. It was pretty early in terms of, like, I would say less than 5% of business, like small business customers, were doing VoIP at that time.
Yeah.
So the approach was door knocking and cold calling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Literal door knocking.
Yeah.
Brisbane, you were based?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what was your sales pattern? Do you remember?
It evolved over time. Like, I started with door knocking. I still obviously remember the first client that I sold. It was a vet clinic. Absolute legend. Actually, I'm still friends with him on Facebook. I just door knocked them and said, hey, just sort of told them what we were doing. We give you better internet connection, and it costs the same because we enable it with VoIP, which a lot of people have heard of, but you don't have the issues with VoIP because we invest in the good internet connection. Can I look at your phone bill, do a comparison, see if it's something that's going to work for you? And I actually spoke with his receptionist. Like, this is the nature of door knocking and cold calling. Like, you do 100 of these, maybe 5 want to talk to you, and maybe 1 of those 5 you sell. And so he was the first one that came back, called me, then sold it relatively quick turnaround. Learned a lot in terms of how to deliver it effectively. But yeah, that was the sales motion at the start. Just door knock, pitch the offer, and get the phone bill, do a comparison on the phone bill, and show them sort of the current cost and new cost. And
cost justification exercise.
Yep.
Makes sense.
and then current speed and new speed.
Yep.
Sell them some of the benefits of the higher speed, and that's pretty much it.
So what I don't think a lot of people outside of the technology industry appreciate is that a technology solution, when you offer it to someone, it nearly always needs to be embedded in the we can make you more money, or we can save you a significant amount of money. I'll pause on that, by the way, for a second, because the make you more money is it's often a hope and a dream. But building a better website, a better mousetrap to get people in, make your funnel more capable, better sales conversion, that sort of stuff is often quite objective. It's not subjective.
Yes, like harder to quantify.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Whereas the save you money, we can produce spreadsheets and show you fancy things and that sort of stuff. The interesting thing about technology is that I've been in that space for 27 years now, 26 years, long time, 1998 I entered it. With the Y2K was coming up, I was working in executive search in London, and I was working in the construction sector. And there were all these billboards around London, which was literal cockroaches on the billboards. The buggers coming, are you prepared? And so it was pretty clear to me that I was in the wrong industry. I needed to be in technology. So I returned to New Zealand and got into technology. Back in those days, it was just a mad rush. And what we now recognize as being a behemoth of a sector, because it's not an industry, it's a sector, which the top 7 stocks in the USA, the FAMGA stocks, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, etc. stocks, those 7 stocks make up as much value as the next 493 on the S&P combined. People don't appreciate the gravity and the power that these companies now have as a consequence of that, and it's such a seismic shift from any time in history. But back in the 90s, technology was a small industry.
Yeah.
And so we were still finding our way and working out how to sell, but we would be able to go and talk to CIOs and CEOs and say to them, look, we should be able to save you kind of 50% on things, or maybe save you 70% on something. So reduce your cost by 30 to 50% was the offer. And they'd be like, that sounds pretty good. I'm going to kind of come along with this.
Yep.
Because of the evolution of technology, and because people have made all these promises that they have sometimes been able to keep, but often not been able to keep, because they either didn't know, or the product wasn't good enough, or it was vaporware, or whatever it might have been, all these things that technology has done over the last 30 years or so for customers. It's meant that now if you've built a solution and you're going to see a CIO, you actually need to show them how they can save 10 times the investment. So 90%,
Yeah.
right? They have to save 90%. Otherwise, they don't believe you.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Because they don't believe the 90%, but they go, well, 90% is never going to happen.
Man in the middle.
Well, yeah, exactly. It'll be 30%, and then that means the investment was worthwhile.
Sure.
So I wanted off to explain a point, which I think is a really relevant, valid point in the technology world today, because a lot of this technology is actually consumer-driven now as opposed to B2B-driven. So you're a cost play. And so how did you go about those early stages of kind of building the business away from the reliance upon Nathan? Because that's one of the early founder challenges. When you're a sales-led founder, which you were, and I presume still are, getting other people to come in and around you is one of the early challenges. So how did you do that?
Honestly, I didn't pull it off.
Okay.
If I pulled it off, the exit would have been much better.
Yeah.
I should probably clarify, we weren't purely a sales play. Like, we were very much a service play. So it was basically like, we're going to give you a much better service and experience for the same price. Everyone hates their telco in Australia and New Zealand. A lot of people hate their IT provider in Australia and New Zealand. And we just sort of came in and said, like, we can fix that for you.
Right.
And it's not going to cost you anymore. Yeah. So that was the play. How did I move it away from me? I didn't. Like, I very much failed at that.
Yeah. I'd imagine you tried to hire reps to get them to go out and sell for you. What do you think would have been some of those early mistakes that you made that if you could go back and do it again, that you'd do differently?
Yeah. So you obviously sent me the notes beforehand around like one of the key learning, and it's focusing on one thing. So I actually, in the very early stages, within the first couple of months, brought on a good friend of mine as a minor shareholder, and very successful sales guy. And he crushed it. He did a really good job. And so like we'd done it. Like, we literally within maybe 6 months had a successful business that any experienced business person would have just scaled massively. Whereas what I did is started coming up with other shit to sell. So yeah, like I had Michael's his name, gun sales guy. He was doing better numbers than me after a few months of being in the business. And then ultimately, because I went on down all these different tangents and selling all these different things, I think he probably got a bit disenfranchised and he moved on. And yeah.
So you hired a guy and he became super successful, but then you decided the key to this business's success was to sell a multitude of products rather than just sell one or two products and get amazing at that. So having a go over again, you would go back and just go, let's expand our market share rather than just try and sell a whole bunch more things to these different people.
Yeah. So Alex Hormozy has the saying around business owners learn the wrong lesson. They quit their job, they start this new thing. People tell them, oh, that's risky, that's not going to work, whatever. And like you start the thing and it works. And you're like, yes, I'm so smart. And it's like, and then the lesson that seemingly most people learned, unfortunately it took me my entire business to learn it. But the lesson that we learn is start new things.
Yeah.
Whereas the lesson, like start new things, it's cool, it's fun, like whatever. Whereas what we should be doing is just scaling the thing that works.
There's a truism in business today, and I still struggle with this with people that are 4, 5, 8 years into business, and it's about niching, the power of niching.
Yeah.
And so it's to be incredibly clear about the offer that you have for a specific customer, and you go to the stage of naming them. We call it an ICP, ideal customer profile.
Yeah.
And so it's if you're doing proper marketing approach, then you name them as Steve or Wendy from marketing, and they're in their mid-30s and they live in suburban Auckland and they drive a Mazda. You go right down to that level of detail.
Avatar or the...
Exactly. Yeah. That's helpful-ish, but most people struggle just with identifying the type of company or the sector that they play in.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that you go into that sector, and then because in marketing parlance, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody.
Yeah.
And so what we try and do is to go, hey, world, we've got this amazing solution. That hasn't worked for the longest of time, right? It may have done back in the early days when the world wasn't as competitive as it is today, but it's unbelievably competitive out there right now, and that's not going to change because it's so easy to start a business. It's so easy to get the resources to help you learn how to start and scale a business.
Yeah.
And so kind of everyone's giving a bit of a go, and that's cool, but you need to therefore be aware that you've got to be incredibly hyper-focused on what it is that you're selling and to whom.
Yeah.
And then you can expand out in regional centers, typically, go out to different parts of the country, geographic expansion of that tiny little thing that you sell incredibly well, that you understand your customer incredibly well.
Yeah.
So that's a key early lesson for you.
Yeah, 100%.
So then along the way, you met a business partner. So at what stage did you go, this thing that we're doing is not going to be able to be scalable, and then kind of went out to seek a business partner?
Yeah, okay. So that was actually, I met him before the guy Michael came along. So I'd actually met him quite some time earlier. He ran the largest electronic security company in Queensland. So I'd always heard his name when I was selling security products. And then before I started this business, I tried to in fact, I think I had for a short period, like the sole distribution rights for this security camera product called Dawa, which is like maybe the third biggest in the world out of China, second biggest out of China. And so in order to be able to maintain those rights or like get something to happen, maybe it was, I can't remember, meet the minimum order quantity or something, I needed someone bigger than me to get them in. And so I approached him, had a chat. He was interested, but he had some conflicting business things. So he said, look, can't do it now, but like stay in touch. So then I tried to, when I started doing telco, I tried to sell him the solution because he understood the tech. The people who understand the tech a little bit, I found were the easiest to sell it to because they were already aware of VoIP, they were already aware of faster internet, and you just had to explain to them how you plug the gap. So anyway, I tried to sell it to him and he sat me down. And so I didn't identify that I wanted to partner with him. He kind of identified it for me. So he sat me down and goes, I've been trying to start a telco for 4 or 5 years. Like, we've got all these customers. I know it's a good thing to do, but everyone I've spoken to told me it costs like $1 million or $2 million to get a telco off the ground. Like, how have you done this? And I definitely didn't have any money, like probably had like $5,000 when I started. And so I'd literally just told him like how I arrange my suppliers, everything, because he'd always been good to me and I trusted him. And so he goes, okay, do you want to come work for me? I've got this thing connected to Australia. And I'm like, mate, wouldn't be a good employee. Like, I just want to run my own thing. And then very quickly, we agreed that we would just join forces. I would bring my clients and recurring revenue across. He'd put some cash in, 50-50 business. We would sell services into that security company's customer base.
Yep. Okay. They would have had hundreds, I'd imagine,
I'd
of
say
customers.
thousands. Yeah.
Thousands of customers.
Yeah, maybe
Okay.
10,000 plus.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Across but some were consumer and some were business. So maybe a couple of thousand business customers.
Okay. So how did that go, and what did you do to make it succeed or not?
It didn't actually go that well, the selling into the client base.
Why?
I'm not sure. They were based in Toowoomba and we were based in Brisbane, so about an hour and a half apart. It's kind of like Tauranga and Auckland,
Yeah. Okay.
in terms of population size and distance away. And yeah, I couldn't book meetings very effectively with those clients for whatever reason. And then the next thing that happened is he actually sold a large component of that business. So he sold. Actually, maybe he sold all of that business. Like, he was on his way out of that business. And so it just didn't really eventuate.
Do you think, so the notion of taking an additional product or an additional service to your existing customers is called a brand extension. And so there's some really logical brand extensions that businesses can go about doing, and there's some ones that don't make any sense. One of my favorite ones that doesn't make any sense is that way back in the 1980s, BIC, which is the French lighter company, and a lighter is a pressurized container that has a flammable fluid in it that gets released in small doses. BIC had this brain wave, which was an absolute brain fart, which was, why don't we get into cologne, perfume? So they had BIC Noir. And so they're like, we're going to sell it for $10. It'll be at the checkout. That's where people buy their lighters from. We're just going to have Noir. Of course they're going to buy cologne from a lighter company, right? It was a total disaster, right? They spent millions on research and then tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on product development and product placement and advertising. And there was TV advertising. It was global. And everyone's just laughing at them for this kind of brand extension that they did. That's one that was very unsuccessful. But there's been others that have been, famously successful. I had Kaz Staples in here from Pure Delish. She started making a triple the price of the existing category cereal. Very, very high quality, high price cereal. Beautiful cereal. Love the product still today. Had an 8-figure exit, built a wonderful business. She started to make nut bars. Right. So that's a brand extension. And it makes sense, right? You go, I can see cereal, granola, nuts, seed. We're just going to compress them with a bit of honey and then shove them into a packaging. It's harder than that, but I'm just dumbing it down. And then we're going to sell those things in Pure Delish. We can relate those two things together. So this is a brand extension. Do you think that there was any relativity around you guys? You're selling me telco. Like, what are you trying to do to sell me internet? Like, is there that?
Possibly a little bit of that. So the context that he was coming at it from is they were security providers, right? But they were in the middle of nowhere. So they're kind of system integrators. So and what was happening at that time is just like the VoIP stuff, everything was starting to get run across IP networks, so like data networks. Whereas previously you had one cable for your cameras, one cable for your phones, one cable for other stuff. Whereas now everything could run across the same network.
Right.
And so they were very involved in those IP networks. So it was a logical extension, but I think the way to market that would have worked better was through their salespeople rather than me trying to call their customer base, just it being an upsell. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't actually thought too deeply onto that.
Yeah. If it was me, if I was doing that, the different skill sets and different ways of looking at the world, I would have gone, this is a direct marketing kind of campaign. So we send letters out to a whole bunch of the customers. We put them into the newsletter. We talk about it regularly. And then the incumbent customers who they've got the relationship with become equipped to be able to sell that additional thing to them. and they get incentivized. I haven't talked about this on the show. That kind of selling something new into the incumbent product, customer set is actually a lot harder than people think from the outside. Like getting partnerships right is actually really hard because it all, in my opinion and experience, hangs around the incentives for the individuals. And that's like, incentives are really, really hard to get right. We can see it playing out across the country at the moment. Like we've got people incentivized that are running our institutions, be they health, be they government. They're incentivized with the wrong things. They're looking at the short term rather than the long term. CEOs running public companies incentivized by quarter, not for the 10 to 20 year structure of the business. Warren Buffett famously always looks out 20 to 30 years into the future. CEOs look out the next quarter, right? Yeah. So incentives are just completely wrong. And so I wonder if like getting the current people sales enabled and then incentivized properly, that could have been something that might have worked.
Yeah, I reckon that would have worked at least better than what we did.
Yeah, okay. But nonetheless, you built a business that had some substance and some worth.
Yep.
So what kind of scale did you get to with that company?
We probably got to about 2,500 customers.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe 200 to 300 business customers and the rest residential customers.
Yeah, okay, cool. And
those business customers ranged from 1 or 2 staff member business to like some pretty large, maybe 100 plus.
Yeah, okay. So getting into small enterprise. Yeah, okay, cool. And so we are probably late 20-teens now, 19, 20, or are we pre-COVID or are we post-COVID that the should we sell this thing conversation started to come up?
Just pre-COVID. I was thinking about that on the way here.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah. All right. So talk me through that kind of timing. So the business is about 5 years old, so it's still relatively early stage.
Yep,
give or take. You've got a business partner. You're 50-50.
No, at this stage he's gone.
Oh, what happened?
So didn't see this question coming. So he was like an exceptional mentor and everything. Basically, it was a personality conflict between him and the CTO that I brought on who was instrumental in growing the business technically.
Right.
They had a clash, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to buy me out?" Basically, right. And he let me buy him out for like a reasonable price. And so that was a couple years before the sale conversation started.
Yeah, got it. And he, I think you'd mentioned, had sold his security company in the background. Yep. So that had happened. And then he had this asset that was still kind of, in the ISP, in the weird space, maybe a bit of a like, I might divest myself of all my assets thing potentially as well. And I don't need this hassle.
Yeah, it was quite probably an I don't need this hassle. Like he'd sold his business, did well in that sale. He was doing something else. Like he wasn't divesting all his assets. He runs a publicly listed company now.
Right.
But it was probably a bit of, I don't need this drama right now. And it's more important for the business that I carry it forward. Without that. So, yeah.
So I'm not going to ask any questions about their difficult relationship because that's probably confidential. But you're the CEO and the founder of that company. Looking back on that and like interpersonal conflicts is one of those things you've just got to deal with. Like I've many times historically with my businesses, I've rolled my eyes and guys, come on, for fuck's sakes, guys. Just like really, like if you could step back and see yourselves and how you're behaving like a couple of kids, right? But I had a therapist at one stage that said that we regress when we feel that the fight-flight thing comes in. Cortisol, adrenaline pops into your system and we regress and we either go back to a 2-year-old's brain, which is the screaming and shouting and having a tantrum, or we go to the teenager's brain, which is I'm overwhelmed, but I've got words, but they don't make any sense, right? So those are the things that we regress to.
Sure.
And so whatever they were doing, but you were the CEO, and one of the things that I've acknowledged the role of the CEO is to help others resolve conflicts effectively.
Yeah.
Because then that way you can step in and help them see it. And you can't do what you used to be able to do it at school, for example, which would grab a couple of kids by the scruff of the neck, bang their heads together, and then kind of they'll fall over and get into a bit of shock and then shake it off and move on.
Yeah.
But looking back on that thing now, what would you have done differently to help them work through that interpersonal conflict? And you may not have the thought or the thinking, but
I'm not sure we could have worked through it.
Right.
Although, like, again, I feel like everything comes back to that focus thing that I was talking about. So if we just focused on one thing and we were all running towards one thing, there would have been less conflict because the business would have been doing better. Thinking back, like the conflict was probably about allocation of resources,
Yeah.
and we were just spread too thin. So I feel like just having that bit right would have possibly prevented that conflict ever happening.
Yeah. One of the more recent examples of where I had to do it, my approach, just for what it's worth, is that I do some background digging around. So if there's some conflict, I speak to the people individually and I say, what's going on? What have you seen that's happened? And then I say, are you okay if we get into a room together to resolve this? Are we at the stage that we can talk together? I get people into the room and I kind of set the scene and I establish that we have a shared objective here. So is it fair to say that we want to kind of, get a good relationship happening, fostered, and also we've got this shared company goal that we've agreed. Is that a fact? I say, so this is what, and everyone agrees. And so of course, we want to achieve good things and we want to have a harmonious relationship. So this is what I've seen that's going on in the background. And it seems to me like there's just a bit of a misunderstanding. And as it's happened many, many times in the past, everyone goes, yep, misunderstanding. And then I just look at them and then someone inevitably apologizes for how they behaved because they said something that was untoward or they had the wrong end of the stick and they apologize. As soon as there's an apology in the room, the other person nearly always apologizes as well.
Makes sense.
If they don't, then it'll be a conversation that I have with them afterwards to kind of go, hey, where were you at with this thing?
Sure.
And if they say, I'm sorry you feel that way, then I grab their head and smack it on the table. I don't, you can't do that. But that's someone saying basically you're wrong.
Yeah.
But getting the relationships are held together through a mix of establishing expectations.
Yeah.
So what is it that you expect, and then managing those expectations accordingly, and then having effective, regular communication. That means that you can avoid as much of the miscommunication as you expect along the way. So the regular communication is just a critical thing. So.
Yeah, 100%. Like there's so many things I could have done better that would have prevented that. And I would like if I had a similar conflict now with two people in the current business, I would handle it very similar. Like we've got a shared vision. Here's what we're working towards. What's causing this? Like let's get to the bottom of it. And I'd handle it earlier, like the first time that they get snappy at each other, rather than being like big important business partner. Don't want to upset him. Really, really smart CTO. Don't want to upset him.
Yeah.
Just address it sooner. Probably would be the takeaway. Yeah. The more I think about it.
100%. So 2019, sole owner of the business. What made you think that, hey, now might be the time to consider selling this asset?
Yeah. So it started with a merger conversation.
Oh.
So what happened? This company in Brisbane had raised $1 million at a $10 million valuation on a slide deck, and basically at about their 2-year mark, they were planning on being at sort of where our business was. They had some other cool stuff around gaming that was very hype in the pre-COVID time. But anyway, they'd raised a whole bunch of money. I'd identified we had like all the infrastructure in place. We had the way to acquire customers, but telco, the business model, is very high customer acquisition cost. So, and then long payback periods.
Right.
So like it might have cost us in the residential space, which is where I was focusing by this time. It might have cost us $300 to acquire a customer, make $15 a month. So, it's 2-year return on acquisition cost. So you could grow, but only to the point of your capital. So I was already sort of looking at like, how can I get some cash into this business? And part-time, already spread too thin, as you know, like raising capital is a full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
And so I did a terrible job at it, never raised any capital. Anyway, we're at their industry like welcome drinks, which is one of the joys when you're a well-funded startup, that you can host things like this, right? And so I got chatting with all of their team, really cool team. But I was chatting with the CEO and I just asked him, like, how did you raise the money? And we chatted and I was like, wow. He had a legal background and he'd helped people do M&A stuff. And I was like, wow, you've got like all the experience that I wish I had. And then sort of struck up a merger conversation because I'm a big believer in like, if 1 + 1 = 3. I think I stole that quote from that other business partner, but I really believe in the concept. If 1 + 1 = 3, I want to do a 50-50 deal there,
True.
right? And so started having the merger conversation, and then
This is interesting, just while you're reflecting. So we typically raise money, nearly always, in fact, when there's some potential for IP, which is leverageable technology. So software product companies is the classic example.
Yep.
Deep tech is another classic example, because you invest a whole lot of money into this thing that becomes defensible because the building of that thing was expensive and hard.
Yep.
And then you find a way to get that thing out to customers, and you drive down the customer acquisition cost, which means you get product market fit, and then you pour some gas on it, and voila, you've got a $10 to $100 million recurring revenue company.
Yeah.
I've made it sound really easy. It's not, but that's the simple.
How hard can it be?
Yeah, how hard can it be, right? Anyone can do it. But that's the really simple, high-level version of what you do. But the critical thing is that business must be one that can be leverageable, right?
Yeah.
And so they raise money to build games.
No. So they raised money to build a telco, basically,
Oh.
but focusing on the gaming market. So focusing on like a low latency telco. They had like various things. So something I haven't told you about, one of the many different parts of the business that we built was we built a fixed wireless network. Are you familiar with like fixed wireless networks?
Tell me more.
So like we get a fiber backhaul connection into a building, and then like radios on top of buildings, and then you can service customers from like direct line of sight radios. And so we built this business, which is a very high margin business, which is quite attractive. Also high like CapEx
Running
to get
costs.
set up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And just bad when you're running sort of 5 different businesses within one business. Anyway, so their key things that they were doing was they were going to build out this wireless network, low latency wireless network, and they were going to build this like international, and I think they've pulled off this international network, low latency network with centralized around, like, are you familiar with the country Guam?
Oh, yes. In the middle of the Pacific, the US has a military base there, which is kind of its main reason for being, because it's a useful stop-off and drop-off place for supplies and for fuel and bits and pieces.
Yeah, so that was a core piece of their thing, was like, hey, we're going to have a data center essentially in Guam, and so we can reduce the latency between Australia and Asia, particularly for gaming, and like make it so they can almost play like Australia and New Zealand in terms of gaming latency. And so, part of it was locally the fixed wireless low latency network, and then the other part of it was the international network.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if I'm still correct, so before Starlink, Musk's satellite-based ISP, essentially global ISP.
Yep.
We were, and I think still are, reliant upon the submarine cables, which goes from Auckland to Sydney, and then from Sydney to the United States. I think, is that correct? Is that how the telco? That's how our fiber, our wireless. There's heaps of
yeah. I'm like hesitant to like try and name them, because I know if any of my engineer friends from telco land, they'll be like, Nathan has no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But like, I just know there's lots. It's like a spider web.
Yeah, okay. But that essentially is our fiber is still in the ground. It's under the ocean. Yeah. Okay. And so this was them doing a certain version of that for the gaming high, a need for low latency. I get it. Yeah,
so what they were doing is, so the fiber's already there, right? From Australia to Guam, and that was being landed around that time. But so the fiber was already there. And what they were doing that was clever was they were putting like routers and servers there. So they're hosting the gaming servers in the middle. So if you imagine, if we host a game in Australia and we want to play against people in Asia, the people in Asia are going to have high latency to the gaming server. Whereas if we put it in Guam, which is like bang in the middle, it makes both people have the same amount of latency, and it was an acceptable amount of latency.
Okay, got it.
That's it from a gaming context.
Interesting. Hey, Legend. Thanks for your ears. I really appreciate you listening to the show. Everything improves through feedback. I'd be really grateful if you could head to my website, joshcomrie.com, just click on the podcast link, and fill out a 2-minute survey, which will give me the insights around the things that you're enjoying about the show and where you would like us to go more into the future. It'll take less than 2 minutes. I'd be really grateful. And you'll also receive some free resources should you share your email address with us. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of the show. I am a big fan of an author called Michael Lewis.
Okay.
He wrote a book called The Big Short, which debunks, there was a movie about it. but it explains how essentially the GFC happened through a series of people's eyes. He wrote another book, he's written a bunch, they're all great, called The Flash Boys. The Flash Boys. And he exposed a part of stock trading that at that stage was unfamiliar to me. It's kind of still unknown to most people. High frequency trading.
Yeah.
And how he came across it is because he was walking in his neighborhood, which was, I want to say, Connecticut. And he was observing that there were these companies that were installing these different internet connections.
Yep.
And they were running from Chicago to New York City. So New York City is obviously where Wall Street is. That's the brokerage, the exchange sits there.
Yeah.
And Chicago is where the futures exchanges are. So the derivatives exchange is based there. And so what they discovered is that the fiber between those two was 400 milliseconds too slow.
Yeah.
So like micro amounts of time too slow. So people invested, I think my recollection is something in the region of $15 billion. And this is in about 2010, 2012 kind of money, a bunch of companies to build these direct link cables between those two centers so that what they'd be able to do is to beat the market and get into these things called dark trades. I won't get into it. It's a really complex subject, but it's a really interesting book to understand this kind of internet space and how it has so much impact upon finance world, gaming world, a lot of other things. So yeah. So anyway.
So I'm vaguely familiar with that.
Yeah.
In fact, that was one of the many niches that we that we worked on. I actually quoted a trading company, both a dark fiber service and a microwave service, because they need diversity on their links, right? So if the fiber gets cut, it'd be great if they can have the link through the air.
Right.
An interesting thing about that, I don't know how true this is. I think it's true. Is like in the ASX data centers, like there's regulations on how long the cables are for people. Like that's the level of like competition and like how important it is to these people that they're playing on the level playing field in terms of latency.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it. So the technology, so actually what they were looking for wasn't your business model and the revenue attached to your business model. It was rather a piece of the technology that you had enabled to get working and that you deployed into a certain customer set. Is that right?
I think it was just getting like 2 years ahead.
Right.
And so I think they kind of wanted me from I'm good at sales.
Yep.
And they were very good at engineering and raising money. And so they didn't really have a head of sales. And so we had revenue. We would have got them to I think we had 12 wireless points of presence, and that was sort of I think where they were aiming to be after 2 years with all this money they were raising. So it would have just been hey, great news story. We've just chopped off 2 years off of our time frame on this key part of the business.
Yeah. That's actually a really big thing that people don't consider. There's the time value of money. So the consequence of waiting an additional period of time for your business, for competition, for lack of ability to achieve your results, spending money to shorten that time frame carries some value. Yeah, that's 100%. A really important thing.
That's the exact premise we ultimately sold the business on.
Oh.
We didn't sell it to these people in the end, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. But it whet your appetite to go, maybe I should sell the company. Is that what happened?
Well, not really. So I tried to do this merger with these guys.
Yeah.
And that fell through for various reasons. And then I tried raising money again because I was well, if they've managed to raise this money, and I failed at the raising money again.
Do you know why?
Just not putting enough time into it, because I was constantly putting out fires and I didn't have the focus, so we didn't have the cash available. So I think just not putting, trying to sneak it in between all the other stuff rather than spending dedicated time on what to do.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
And if you're an investor, do you want to invest in the guy who's going we sell phone systems and internet to business customers, this to property developers, we're doing that? No. Yeah. So
I want focus. Yeah, I want clarity on the problem that you solve, how you solve it, and how you're going to scale that.
Exactly. So that's probably why.
Yeah.
I was fighting a losing battle and didn't put much time into it.
Yeah, got it. So failed merger. How did you then go, this asset, I might sell it? What was the process that you went through to get it out into?
I was trying the raising thing, and then there was another local company similar size to us, who they were technically led. I think there was only 3 of them. They were doing similar amount of revenue. They had a higher cost base because they did more technical stuff, data center stuff. And that just seemed like a match made in heaven, is like having a technical business merge with a sales and support business. And so, I can't actually remember how that conversation started. But we just started talking about potentially merging, and then ultimately it ended up in selling to them.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so given that you were growing the business, but you also had a situation where you had too many products and probably your cost base was a little bit too high, consequently, high customer acquisition cost, etc. It wasn't a classic kind of EBIT multiple conversation that you had. So tell us about that.
It still triggers me about all the different products. No, I can't stop thinking about that. So we weren't making a whole lot of net profit, very little.
Yeah.
But what we did have was a bunch of infrastructure, and we had a large cost base, let's call it, let me get the numbers vaguely right. So let's say we had 150 grand a year of cost that literally was duplicated in their business. So they could literally just turn that off as soon as they purchase stuff. Right. So to me, that's like EBIT. Like that's money for them, right? Or synergies that they can realize instantly.
Yes.
If I was trying to ask for a multiple of EBIT, it would have been like 15, 20 times to get to where we actually sold for. And so there was that. Then the other thing was, one of the many rabbits we chased over time was we went direct to NBN, National Broadband Network. It's kind of like Chorus in New Zealand. Not many small providers did that. I know why now. It was not the right, it was hard, but also it's just not the right sequencing. Like you should have a certain amount of customers. Like we should have just focused on getting to 10, 100,000 customers and then done it, rather than trying to do it, then add the customers there. But the benefit is it takes a long time. I think we first inquired with them 5 years before we ultimately got directly connected with them. And so that's the time value money thing. Like just by buying our business, you can might have only saved them like 2 years or 1 year, but a significant amount of time on that part of the thing.
Yeah.
Why else did they buy us? We had strong relationships with property developers. So you know how you talked about partnerships before and getting incentives right? We did really well there.
Right.
And I think they wanted those.
Interesting. Okay. And so once you worked out what the hot points were for these guys, I guess you emphasized the hell out of the things. You kind of continued to impress upon them that narrative as to where the value of the company was.
Yeah, it's a weird one, eh? So we originally came at this through the lens of merging, right? And so I sort of had an idea of what I thought the company was worth, and they had an idea of what they thought theirs was worth. And I was like, well, I don't really care if my company's worth, if we're merging, right? I don't really care if we're going to value your company at 10 million in the merge and mine at 5, or your company at 3 and mine at 2, or whatever, as long as the ratios are right, as long as I feel like I'm getting a fair percentage of the business. And so, which is where I feel like they probably did quite well in the process, so we then agreed on like the figures that we were going to use and then we were kind of anchored to those, which thankfully I was anchored to like the lowest that they could make my figure was what I'd already nearly done with the previous guys that I looked at merging to. Naively, I wasn't approaching it through like I was trying to sell to them. I was giving them the value of the asset, and like the guy who I was merging with totally got it. Like he understood all the synergies. That's one of the benefits of being in a small business and selling or merging with a small business person, is like we're so ingrained in the business that we understand all the little cost levers and stuff that we could pull.
Yeah.
So they got it. They got the value quite easily.
Yeah.
And then it was just convincing the finance person on their side, or honestly, I think they were convinced the whole time. I think they knew they were getting a good deal, but like typical a finance person's always going to try to drill down the price, right?
Yeah.
And a lawyer's going to try and lawyer.
So looking back on the deal that you did now and having a bit of time to reflect and being a bit more of a mature business person, what would you have done differently?
I would have, it's hard because again, we didn't have cash, but if I had cash, what I know now, I would have borrowed money to do this, to get a like investment banking company to help me take it to market. And almost certainly would have got a better deal.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So Before we jump on and talk about what's on your sweatshirt, the business that you're in now, so you mentioned to me that we could discuss a bit of your personal life in coming through. And you had a real struggle with some addiction.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was like a degenerate gambler from 16 to, I was thinking about this in the Uber on the way here, maybe like 22 or 23. I can't remember the exact date, but quite a while.
What was your poison of choice, so to speak?
Almost anything except for pokies.
Okay.
It started with, God, what did it start with? Okay, so a little bit of backstory before this. So I started buying and selling stuff. So buying stuff from America and selling it on Trade Me. And so I had like an online business thing going on in high school. And then I lost all that because I imported like a few $1,000s worth of Oakleys. But Oakley, New Zealand had the sole importing rights to those. And so they got shredded in customs. And so I lost everything in that little venture. And then I started Googling like quick ways to get rich, which anyone who's like successful in business knows you shouldn't be looking at the quick ways. But anyway, quick ways to get rich. And I came across this like person selling a ebook, I think, on like place betting on favorites, like horse racing favorites for a profit. And I read it and like, I'm a numbers person. I'm like, ooh, numbers work. Like it's a good argument. Like, let's give it a crack. Tried that. Didn't really work. Like maybe worked slightly, but I don't think it really worked. And then I was like, okay, cool. But then that opened the door to gambling. And then there was, are you familiar with online gambling at all?
Almost totally not.
Almost not at all?
Yeah,
okay.
So enlighten us.
Okay, so there's this, there's like online blackjack and online poker and all these online casinos, and particularly back then, not so much now, they would offer you like a deposit bonus to deposit funds into their casino because they want to get people hooked, right? And so someone had come up with this like arbitrage thing you could do where you could, and I just followed their process. And this one actually legit worked. So like you deposit $100 into this casino, they'd give you another 100. You had to play it through like 30 times. And if you played like best practice blackjack, you'd sort of lose about 10% of it. So you'd deposit 100, have 200, play it down to like, and then you'd have 180, you would draw it, and then you do the next deposit bonus because there's all these online casinos, right? And that worked. Like without a doubt, that worked. I got to a bankroll of like $3,000 from the initial $100, which is decent for like a probably 16-year-old, right? But in that process, I started getting like, I definitely have an addictive personality. And I started getting addicted to like the thrill of it all. And like I also really like, I don't gamble now at all. The one thing I would like to start doing again is poker, like Texas Hold'em poker, because I feel like it's a bit different to the other styles of gambling. So yeah, I just got deep into that and got pretty bad. I lost all of that 3,000, which is just the beginning of what I lost in total. And then sort of, I think my mum always knew that like this is a problem. Like you've got her dad had a gambling problem, and she's like, you've got a gambling problem. Like, and I sort of managed to argue my way out of it and keep doing it, whatever. Anyway, that stopped when I lost all the money because I was like, well, I can't re-go through the deposit bonuses. Like it's done, right? And then I moved to England when I was 17, and I found a new way to make money. Gambling, which was online Texas Hold'em. You could go online. Most people are just playing there for fun, right? No one's really playing online small stakes to make money. And so there was a strategy you could use again, where you'd open like 20 tables and you'd fold anything but like the top, call it 15 hands. So like pocket aces, just the top 15 hands. So you'd be almost folding everything. And then when you got to go across all your 20 tables, right? And so it's almost like a video game, like your table's popping up, you're going, fold that one, fold that one, fold that one. Anyway, and then when you got a good hand, you'd bet it. And because these people are just casual, they're usually just calling like the whole way through. And so you'd make like on really small stakes tables, like 5-10 cent blinds for anyone who knows about Texas Hold'em. You'd make like 25 to 50 pounds an hour doing that. And so I'd just do that in the evenings. I was volunteering in an outdoor center over there, and I'd do that. And that was cool. But then again, like that process worked, but then I'd get pulled into the like blackjack at the casino, and like I still remember I went to a casino with one of the Aussie guys who volunteered with me with like £300 or something, like quite a bit of money back then, and like lost it all in like 5 or 10 minutes, and he was horrified because he's not like a degenerate gambler. And this is during the day in a casino. Anyway,
I've got a funny story. I'm not a gambler, so I consider my version of gambling investing in startups.
Okay, yeah,
which is into the millions, well into the millions of dollars now, and you keep on losing it along the way. But it does have a form of an allure and addiction to it. So that's my version. But we're in Vegas. A buddy of mine and I, one time, one of the tricks with Vegas is to go with a big group of people, by the way.
Okay.
Because you've got people that want to go to shows, people that want to go to the casino, people that want to go to the nightclubs, people that want to go to the circus, all these different events that are on. Vegas is adult Disneyland.
Sure.
And there was just two of us. And so I like galleries, and I like going out to bistros and bars, cocktails, that sort of thing, and a bunch of other things. So we're like, I'm like, Dave, if you come to this, bar, he wouldn't go to a nightclub. He's not that guy.
Yeah.
So we go to this bar thing, and I'll go gambling with you one night. And so we go and we sit down. It was the first time I'd ever sat down at a blackjack table. And he explains to me beforehand how to play. And he goes, just to start with $100. So I'm there, my $100 lasts me about 7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. And he goes afterwards, he goes, how was that? See, it was fun, eh? And I'm like, Dave, I can think of literally 100 ways I would rather spend $100. And I can list them out for you if you like, but let's not do that. Let's just go to the bar that I want to go to. Yeah. So, and you like the bar, as it turns out, but I could never get into a nightclub. So I get what you're talking about. What impact did the gambling have on your life?
Lots. Positive looking back, and negative, of course. So I was still gambling when I, like on and off, when I met my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, but secretively. Like I knew it was addiction.
Right.
Like I knew I was addicted and I hid it. And so I remember one time in my first sales job, like the phone system stopped working one day, and I'm like, awesome, good excuse to go to the casino. And like I came home with like $10,000 of $100 bills, which is like quite thick, like bulging wallet. Hid it. Didn't show my flatmate. Didn't show my girlfriend at the time, but wife now. Maybe because I knew I was going to lose it, or because I was embarrassed about the fact that I'd just been gambling. Not really sure. Ultimately, when I hit like the rock bottom thing, I went to Gamblers Anonymous.
What was rock bottom?
What was rock bottom? Yeah, so I've got a screenshot of it, which I'll share with you after this. It was basically I gambled away. I still don't think me and Sam had joint accounts, so I don't think I gambled away any of her money. But I gambled away like all the money in my savings account, and then $7,500, which was the limit on my credit card. So, and so the strange thing about it is, like, when you think about like why are you gambling, it's like a lot of people think it's like an escape from reality, which I kind of think maybe there was
I thought it was dopamine.
Yeah, dopamine. Yeah. But so the strange thing about this is my parents were over in Brisbane seeing us, like in the other room, and I'm in my, like, this is really sad, like if you picture this person, I'm in my room, wife's at her job, she had like a job where she was working on the weekend, and I'm during the day, and I'm in the room, in the bedroom, and I've gambled away, I'm going to say like probably $15,000 with like the savings plus the credit card to nothing. So like I now have nothing.
Yeah.
But I do remember being like, thank God, like this is rock bottom. Like I have to tell people. And so, and whereas previously I'd gotten myself in some sticky financial situations with gambling. For example, when I moved to Aussie when I was 20, I had like $200 in my bank account as a well-paid salesperson in a New Zealand sales company. I had like $200 in my bank account, but I couldn't tell my parents that I might need help. But I just always seem to make it through these like tough situations. Anyway, this one was like, maybe I could make it through, but like I've got an opportunity to get out here. And so I went and told my parents, and they're like, shit, that's real bad. But exceptional parents, like they were like, shit, like my dad, I still remember saying like, I'm so sorry. And because mum had told him that it was an addiction, and so he felt some level of responsibility. So yeah, I almost get like teary thinking about that. And then they're like, okay, so have you told Sam about this? And I was like, well, yeah, I kind of brought it up a couple of years ago when something happened, but she doesn't know the depth of it, basically. And then so they're like, well, you have to tell her, and like, you need to be aware that she may not want to be with you. Like, this is a pretty, like, I think we were, I don't know, 2 years in, like, early enough that she could still escape.
No kids, no ring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no kids, not engaged. And so I told her, and she was like, yeah, cool, like, let's sort it out. And like, the thing from her and my parents were like, you have to go to Gamblers Anonymous. Like, and I didn't want to, because I had this preconceived idea of like gamblers being like these degenerates, like teethless people, and like.
I had sorry to interrupt.
No, it's good.
Contribute to the story, and this is not my good friend story, but I had a friend 15 years ago who clearly had an alcohol problem, like a chronic alcohol problem. And it got to the stage where he had lost his second job in the space of 2 months, highly paid tech jobs, for being drunk on the job, actually getting drunk after hours and just being completely inappropriate. And I sat down with him over lunch one day and I said, dude, this is at the stage of life where you've got to admit that this is a problem. You need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And so he was raised in a wealthy family.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went to this meeting and I saw him directly afterwards. And he goes, those people are all scumbags. They're all losers. I'm not like them. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, half of them don't have jobs and from South Auckland. I'm from South Auckland. And they are, one of them missing teeth, and, tattoos on their face, these kind of judgment calls, not acknowledging that they were human beings that had a disease, because, addiction, negative addictions, or any form of addiction is a disease, I understand now, and that he was just of a different postcode. Yeah. That was the only difference between them. Funnily enough, a couple of years go by and things got worse with that character. And so I and a few others just decided, well, I'm in my mid to late 30s by now. If I continue to hang out with someone who's clearly got a negative impact upon my life and they're making decisions which are just completely contrary with my values, it becomes on me rather than on them. Yep. So I just stopped seeing the guy. Yep. And he still today is an alcoholic, and he'll probably die in the next 3 to 5 years because he's would have destroyed his liver so much, cirrhosis, etc., in his early 50s. Terribly sad story. Tried my best. Had another friend, similar situation, decided not to address and deal with those things. And so at a point, you've got to go, okay, I've done my best. Yeah. Anyway, your family didn't do that. They came around you, but also, like, it was probably the first time that you'd fessed up to those people. That was something that was real for you. So what is Gamblers Anonymous like? What do you, is it like, because AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, I believe Narcotics Anonymous is the same thing. They have the 12-step program. Yeah. Is Gamblers Anonymous the same thing? Yeah, based on the same principles. Yeah. Which are quite religious, I understand.
Yeah, there is a religious,
which is not bad. Yeah. Yeah. Were you religious by background?
No.
Okay.
No.
So did you find that confronting, or was it like...
yeah, a little bit. Like, I definitely didn't vibe with the religious stuff. But just before we go on to that, I had a different experience when I actually went to the first Gamblers Anonymous meeting, right? So I'm expecting degens. I show up and there's maybe 6 people there in like a small scout hall, right? And it feels very weird. I'm definitely the youngest. And meet them, whatever. The guy who I found online, who I found how to get there, is like probably mid-60s, comes and says hi, and I'm like, yeah, wow, this is like a really like successful dude. And so you start the meeting by, I didn't go to millions, so I don't actually remember it perfectly, but I believe you start the meeting by going like, hi, my name's Nathan, I'm a gambler. I'm an addicted gambler, and I haven't gambled for X amount of time. For me, it might have been like a week or whatever since that situation. And then they're saying they're like 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. There's 3 people who I can still visualize their faces, and like I know their stories. And one of them who'd been like the 30 years, I was like, whoa. What would my life be like if I didn't gamble for 30 years? Like, because I was making this excess money, like, as a salesperson, which is also like, there's a dopamine thing with being a salesperson. I think salespeople are highly likely to be addicted to things. But yeah, what would my life be like if I didn't gamble for 30 years? And it was like, I think then I was like, wow, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Like, I'm gonna stick with this. But yeah, back to your question about the religious thing. I struggled with it. At least then, I was probably like anti-Christianity or religion at that time.
Atheist.
Yeah, but not even just like atheist, like actively like saying whingy things about, like still like a early 20s, but like acting like a teenager.
Yeah. Isn't it funny in our early 20s we think we know everything?
Yeah.
And then you get to your 30s and you're like, I don't know that much. You get to your 50s and you're like, I know bugger all about anything.
Yeah. You realize how bad it is when like it's like the Facebook memories pop up and it's like, oh my God, I wrote that?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I'm more like, I was wearing that? Yeah. I didn't write a lot of things on Facebook, so yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did you stay in GA for?
I reckon on and off for like regularly for like 6 months.
Yep.
And then I probably tapered it out and out and out.
Yes. I wonder, because you're in your early 20s, right? You're 22. So our neuroplasticity, which is our learning ability, our neurons in our brains are still connecting up at that age. And so I wonder if maybe for you, you were able to kind of get your way out of that situation at that young age because you were still forming those neuroplasticity things. And you were kind of having the regular repeat interaction, let's call it programming in a positive sense, right? Because you can program yourself both positively and negatively.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that could have been an influence.
Yeah, I've never thought about it through that lens, but yeah, possibly. The other thing is I replaced it with a new addiction, which was business.
Yeah. Okay.
So like,
Yeah, that's
slightly healthier one.
In 2 commas, the book just coming out soon, I talk about Elton John and how he was a chronic alcoholic, and cocaine were his two things. And through his 30s, I think even into his early 40s, and so don't quote me on the dates, but he realized he was a chronic alcoholic, and friends and family went to the program, etc. He swapped that addiction out for shopping. And famously, in 1 year, he spent £175,000 in then money, about 20 odd years ago, which let's call it $500,000 plus on flowers in 1 year. $500,000 on flowers in 1 year because he was a chronic shopper. Yeah, still is today, right? Yep. But luckily, he's got agreements like sponsorship, partnerships with Gucci and I think Armani. And so he gets a lot of the stuff free. Because if anyone's ever bought anything from Gucci, they're like, well, $3,000 for a jacket, kind of plus kind of thing. So a smart way to work around that problem. Exercise is another one that people often fall into. They go a foodie or an alcoholic and they find exercise. Yeah. I think that in the parlance or the world of like addictions, they go, that's actually not healthy, but you're better to have that one than the other one. Yeah. That's why I believe Alcoholics Anonymous, if you smoke cigarettes, if you have a nicotine thing, they're like, keep that thing because you've got to have something. Yeah. Right. So that thing's okay. I was just watching the Charlie Sheen documentary over the last few nights. It's a 2-part thing. Unbelievable. If you have an interest in Charlie Sheen. Yeah,
I would love to.
Oh, the depravity of his alcoholism, drug taking and sex. He was all the things, right? And he's very open and honest about it. It's a pretty riveting, but quite sad thing. But he's vaping through the thing, and he hasn't had a drink for 7 or 8 years. He was nicotine, alcohol, cocaine, hookers, everything. Almost everything, right? Yeah. Maybe just not shopping. But he's obviously someone at some stage has gone, keep the nicotine in your life. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Got to have something.
Have a crutch.
Yeah. Hey, so I just want to ask you a direct question, if I may, about this, because you just said a second ago, so you've come through the gambling thing, 15 years not gambling?
Yeah, I might have had like a lapse at about, I did have a lapse at about maybe the 2-year mark, but nothing hectic. Like
okay. You managed to pull yourself out of it.
Like gambled like $300 or something.
But right. Did it feel the same or was it?
No, it felt different.
Right. Okay. And so you said to me in the middle there that you might go and have a go at doing some Texas Hold'em. And is that possibly the voice in your head? Because I understand that people that have the addiction personality, there's the voice going, just one drink will be fine. Is that your voice perhaps going, just one drink will be fine?
Maybe. So I have various coaches in my life. And one of them is like an ex-psychiatrist. And she reckons the data suggests that it's different with gambling and alcohol. So maybe it's a similar voice being like just one drink. Yeah. I don't think it's as slippery a slope. The the poker, and like I'm a different person than I was. Like I'm 34 now. I was probably 22 then.
Yeah. You're trying to justify it to yourself or to me?
Oh, maybe I'm just sort of telling you like that.
But so here's a question for you, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah.
And I'm not your coach or therapist, and this may be cut out, but it may not be.
Yeah.
Is that what good could come of it?
Yeah, good question. It's social and it's competitive and a good friend of mine.
So soccer.
Yeah.
Social and competitive. So is rugby. So is
mentally though.
Like
it's very similar to business in that it's stimulating, mentally stimulating, and like there's a risk piece. And I just enjoy it, and I don't feel that it's got the same risk.
Yeah, cool. Good broker.
Yes.
We spoke about it briefly a few months ago. You were looking to get it out of the ground. You've gone into tell us about the offering and the space that you're in now.
Yeah. So, quick change. Is it financial advisory? We do mortgages and we refer people to good people for insurance and KiwiSaver. We specifically niche. We specifically help people with existing properties to buy their first or next investment property.
Okay.
We help the odd friend and family with first homes and stuff like that, but that's our niche, is helping people with existing properties, whether investment and or owner occupied, to restructure their lending, get better deals, get it so it's set up right for tax reasons, and then purchase new ones if that's what they want to do.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so, what made you choose that space?
Yeah. A few things. I've always been interested in finance. Rich Dad Poor Dad. In fact, he talks a lot in Rich Dad Poor Dad about wealth through property.
Yes.
Which was something the path I didn't go down because I went down the business path.
Actually, his specific, I recall reading the book, I would have been in my 20s, old book now, and his advocacy was, leverage, buy as many rental properties, yield as you possibly can, but don't own your big house, the one that you live in. You should rent that thing. I had that theory for the longest of times, but then I got remarried, and there's the diametrically opposed thing around men, which like have the investment mindset. Not all of us do, but if you have that investment mindset, then you think about this quite critically. And then women are like, I need security, like hardwired for security. And so you kind of got this thing, and you kind of, you end up going, how do we make this thing work? And you end up going, oh, stuff it, I'll just buy the big house, because that's sort of just an easier thing. Yeah,
which is something I'm thinking about at the moment. So I rent the house that I'm in like a quite nice place in the Mount right now, which I wouldn't want to own. I mean, I'd love to own it if I had like unlimited money, but like investment wise, spend wise, it doesn't make sense.
I would just view it as being personally and possibly different portfolio stage, but I view it as being like, that money's dead, I don't think about it, it doesn't matter to me. And my mates are going, yeah, but it's going to go up by X dollars. And I'm like, I don't care, it doesn't matter to me. That's a beautiful home, I love living there, and it brings both of us joy to be there and to share it with others. So, that's kind of where I've landed with it.
And I think the next thing, so I now have a 2-year-old daughter, right?
Yeah.
And so I see the value in like stability and stuff. So I reckon we'll buy a place in the next couple of years. Yeah.
It's almost, you can't put a price on that kind of, that certainty that, this is mine, I'm going to be here for a long period of time, and that's almost valueless over a period of time. I talked about this in one of my individual Talking Head episodes, where your net worth never includes your home. And the reason it doesn't is because it does not generate income for you. There's no yield from that thing. And so I talked about two numbers, kind of $3.5 million and $7 million as being numbers that you should head towards, but you cannot include your family home in that, because there's no return coming from that family home. You're reliant upon capital gains for that thing to be of value to your portfolio, your overall net position over time. And there's no income coming out of that thing. And so if you owned let's call it a $3.5 million rental home, you'll get a terrible yield in New Zealand on that thing. It'll be kind of 1.5%, 2%, because we cap out rental numbers at about $1,500 a week. And so the yield's going to be absolutely dreadful on that thing.
Yeah.
But if you own a $500,000 house, is that possible in New Zealand? I don't know if it is, but if you own a $500,000 house, my understanding is it is possible.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then I think that you can get yields of 5, 6, 7% on that thing.
Yeah.
So that's, even okay, cool. You know better than me. Oh, you know, fun.
We do it all the time. Yeah.
This is what you do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you help people into their first or their second or subsequent investment property. Tell me some of the mechanics and some of the kind of conversations that people should be pondering. So there will be people that watch this show that going, property is a way to wealth. I don't have that opinion, by the way, on residential property, but others do, and that's totally cool. So what's kind of a dialogue? What are some considerations that someone should have about building a portfolio?
Yeah. So firstly, the opinion about whether it is or isn't. I came into this with I was anti-property anti-property. I was anti-residential investment property from a personal almost ethical perspective. I felt like investment property bubble is affecting housing affordability, and there's better ways to make money, run a business or just get better at your job or whatever.
I have a lot of industrial property, so
there you go. There you go. And so my opinion's kind of changed over the last 12 months. Well, obviously it has, because I'm helping people do it.
Yeah.
And originally when I entered, I thought I wouldn't actually help people with investment properties.
Yeah, I recall our conversation, and you were getting niche in somewhere different.
Yeah. So I wasn't even going to do it. And then I came across, I started getting leads through because I was doing some marketing and just around refinance strategies. And then early customers, lots of customers, had investment properties, and they were just managed so bad. I need to make some content about this, but the cardinal sins of having investment properties are paying principal off your investment property when you have a owner-occupied property. By the way, not financial advice or anything, general advice, not specific. But these are the things I see that mistakes people make, which is they're paying principal and interest on their investment property when they've got a owner-occupied property that has a mortgage. Why is that a cardinal sin? You can deduct the interest from your income on your investment property. You can't from your owner-occupied property. So of course, I know you know this, but a lot of people clearly don't. I just realized people have gotten into this investment property game without actually know. They've just heard that you should have investment property, but they don't actually have a strategy or the numbers right.
Here's a question for you. So I ended up with a investment property because GFC, bought a new house, bought my first big house. The GFC happened and I couldn't sell the old house. And so had some tenants in there for a couple of years. And I had a property manager who I was paying, I want to say 5 to 7%. And looking back upon it, that stripped any possibility of yield out of there, because there's all the prospect of yield. Should you have a residential property investment manager doing that thing? Yeah, okay.
Because you're not paying them 5 to 7% of the property value. You're paying them 5 to 7% of the rent. Well, the market right now is 8% of the rent.
Yeah.
The manager covers. Should you have one? I would definitely have one. I would have an investment property.
The hassle away.
Takes the hassle away. And it's okay, so let's say I've got an investment property that makes $30,000 a year. It's about $500 a week. What's 8% of that? $2,400 a year, right? And if I have a value, the whole internal hourly rate, if I value my time at even $200 an hour, I don't have to spend many hours on that for it to become a problem.
Yeah.
Plus, I think having it's the whole reason we all run businesses is to get efficiencies.
Leverage.
Yeah. And so they can do it way better than I can. They've got all the systems. They've got all the tradies. They've got all the things. So yeah, I recommend, as much as Kiwis love doing
DIY.
themselves.
Yeah. I'd be inclined to agree. I actually manage my own industrial stuff, but it's a much, much bigger scale and value, and I have a lot of help to do that as well. With the thing that I found with the property manager that was invaluable to me is actually they tracked the market exceptionally well. So every time there was a turnover of tenant, which was kind of annually from memory, I think I had 3 tenants in there over about 2.5 years. They'd be like, all right, rent needs to go up by $75 a week. Just bang on the exact number it needed to go up by.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been across that stuff.
No.
And so they paid for themselves.
Yeah.
Through that alone.
Yeah. And just having the confidence that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kiwis, it's one of my biggest challenges, just love doing stuff themselves. Fixing their roof when they're not a roof fixing person. I think people should go property managers because the people that actually one of the most common reasons that people won't own an investment property before is because they owned one before and they had to manage the tenants. They DIY'd it and they had to manage the tenants, and it's oh yeah, interesting.
I get it. Any other like lessons or like, things that you'd really suggest that people do or don't do with residential investment?
Paying off interest.
Yep.
That's the key one.
Yeah.
I'm by no means an expert in like selecting the right property.
Yes.
But considering where to say this, like I don't think the best place to buy residential property, investment property, is necessarily new builds. And there are a lot of people in the industry who push that narrative pretty hard and get paid a lot for they're almost, in my eyes, like new build salespeople disguised as mortgage advisors and financial advisors. And so I think that's another one. It's like some of my customers who I see doing the best, getting like 9% yields even, buying at, so rental yields plus they're getting decent growth because they've got land, as they're buying older homes on larger blocks of land, like 800 meters squared plus. So there's a subdividable option or a minor dwelling option, or just land appreciates in value more than the build. And so you get good yield and good like growth, CapEx, cap growth. Basically, be cautious about the incentives that people who are pitching you new builds have. Yeah, is probably what I would say there.
Again, we're back to that incentives conversation. Be very clear on what the incentives are that whoever is peddling, offering that thing to you. Yeah. So we've had a roundabout conversation. You've talked about the Good Broker. We've talked about your business in Australia. You've shared your addiction kind of journey. Is there any stone that we've left unturned, which is something which is like a passion point for you, Nathan?
The gratitude stuff is something I'm passionate about. Yeah. I actually did a short stint at Toastmasters and did a speech about it. So it's funny that we landed on that in the first minute of this, and like personal development, very passionate about, but I hadn't planned on necessarily talking about them.
Yeah, cool. So in an alternate universe, there's another Nathan Morgan French, and he's got a deeply satisfying career that isn't the one of being a founder of a few different businesses, because clearly you've got that entrepreneur vein, find an opportunity that you can make some money and leverage your own skills and abilities and networks through. What's that alternative career that you think?
Investment banking.
IB?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's two forms of investment banking in really simple terms. There's the analyst side, which is the numbers person. They crunch the numbers and they work out where the deals make sense. And then there's the deal doing side, which essentially is a salesperson.
Yeah. So the second one.
Yeah.
But like I have a very good grasp for the numbers. I love the numbers. It's like probably like in the Good Broker, for example, I'm drawing out brokers. Speaking of, if anyone wants to become a broker. But no, and I should be doing less and less brokering, right? But I just love the deals. I love the problems.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, but deal doing, like deal making, I love that. I love sales. I love convincing people, like helping them to understand why a move. Because a lot of times people should do things. There are things in their best interest, but they have a reason in their head as why it's not in their best interest, which I guess is the art of deal making, right? Is helping both parties to see that.
Yep.
And yeah, that'd just be driven by the analytical side. But yeah, I would love to do that. I was going to say I couldn't think of ever working in a job, but that's a job I could do.
Yeah, I get it. I had JB, John Bolton, on the show from Squirrel just a few weeks ago, actually. And he was at the ANZ in a senior leadership role at 33. CEO, he reported the CEO managing a $60 billion portfolio. And he left to set up Squirrel, a mortgage broking consultancy, scale it to a certain size, 140 odd people, and then knew that he wanted to step out of the CE role, not his gift, and also very kind of operationally focused at that stage. So he brought in someone to run that job for him. He took himself off the executive team, and then he put himself back into a mortgage broking role because he loved doing deals.
Yeah,
he loved it. And funnily enough, he was my broker when I went through the process of raising a little bit of money to buy the new home.
Yeah.
And so he's a mate of mine, but I also got the experience of working with JB, which is hilarious. He's a real character.
Yeah.
Anyways, and watch that show. It's such a good show to watch. So, Nathan, rich conversation. Thank you so much for your candor around everything. And I really wish you the best of luck with the Good Broker from here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I felt a bit nervous before coming in because I was like the caliber of a lot of the people that you met on here. Like, some of them I asked for money when I was trying to raise CB. So I was like, New Zealander, telco,
Yes.
very successful. So I tried to raise money with him. And so I was a bit like nervous about what am I going to talk about, but it was real free flowing. So thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
What a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Your ears are really important to me. If you haven't already, why not check out joshcomrie.com. There's a bunch of free resources on there, a downloadable chapter of my upcoming book, 2 commas, a diagnostic to help you understand where your business may be at in relation to your exit journey. And why not feel free to drop me an email with any feedback that you could have. The only way I and any of us can improve is through feedback. Thanks again for listening.